So I'm very pleased to be here with you today to talk about all the advances in Nicaragua. As Tony said, I've been in Nicaragua for 20 years. I'm originally from Idaho in the US. Together with my Irish husband, I have two teenage daughters, aged 14 and 15, who were born in Nicaragua and have attended public school since the age of 3. They're now finishing 9th and 10th grades. I've worked all the time I've been in Nicaragua with the Center for Development in Central America, a project of the US-based nonprofit Jubilee House Community, which was founded 40 years ago in North Carolina to serve the poor, and has worked in sustainable community development in Nicaragua since 1994. In our work, we work with sustainable agriculture with organic farmers, sustainable economic development with cooperatives, education, and healthcare. So I have a wide range of experience where I've seen personally the changes over the last 14 years in Nicaragua. I'll be talking to you today about these advances since the Sandinista government has been back in power. To understand what these advances mean to regular Nicaraguans like those with whom I work, I'd like to describe for you what Nicaragua was like under the 16 years of neoliberal government. When I first came to Ciudad Sandino in 1999, which is a city of 180,000 people located just outside Managua, Hurricane Mitch had recently created 2.7 million homeless people in Nicaragua and Honduras. The neoliberal government had pocketed what aid came into the country, and refugees were living in black plastic in muddy fields. Ciudad Sandino had received 12,000 of these refugees who were in bad conditions. But to be honest, those who've been living in Ciudad Sandino for decades weren't in much better shape. Everyone lived in houses with scrap wood or old pieces of zinc and plastic. There was only one paved road in the city. Most neighborhoods had only sporadic access to water. The city had no sewage system. And even in most urban areas, most people weren't connected to the electrical grid with its frequent blackouts. The only hospital sat empty with no medicines or supplies. Children had to bring their own desks if they wanted to go to school, and they had to pay for their exams. If you saw Nicaragua in the neoliberal years, you know the truth of what I'm describing and the heartache of seeing that suffering firsthand. But you wouldn't recognize the Nicaragua of today. In just 14 years, extreme poverty, people living on less than $1.90 per day, has dropped more than 10%, and poverty has dropped by 23.4%. How has this been done? The Nicaraguan government has implemented a model of equitable, green, pro-poor economic and social development. Let me break down for you what this development has looked like and the results for Nicaragua. Unless otherwise noted, the statistics I'm giving are from Nicaragua's National Development Plan for 2022 through 2026, which was released in June of this year. First, in the area of healthcare. During neoliberal governments, the budget for medicines and materials was minimal. When doctors who were working at our clinic that our organization runs during the day took the night shift at the Hospitalito, which is what our little hospital in Ciudad Sandino is called, they had to turn sick people away because they didn't even have gloves to examine patients or medicine to treat a baby with fever. Every time I drove down the street, I was stopped by people begging for bus or taxi fare to get their sick family members to a hospital in Managua. There was no ambulance service. Patients needing surgery had to bring their own alcohol, gauze, and sutures. During these years, patients literally died on the street outside hospitals for lack of basic medical care. In contrast, today, the Hospitalito is a fully equipped hospital with general medicine, pediatrics, gynecology, psychology, and natural medicine. There's emergency care and admitted beds. There's a cataract surgery center, a maternal weight home, a physical therapy center, and a center for people with disabilities. Ciudad Sandino is just one city. Public healthcare has been revolutionized all over the country. The entire structure and culture of healthcare has changed, focusing on making families active participants in their own health, and relying heavily on a small army of workers doing everything from mosquito elimination to door-to-door vaccination to health promotion and education. In 2005, Nicaragua had 1,092 health units, the vast majority in deplorable conditions. Between 2007 and 2021, the largest public health infrastructure in Central America has been built, with a total of 1,565 health units. In 14 years, Nicaragua has built 21 hospitals new and remodeled 46 more. It has built or remodeled 1,259 medical posts, 192 health centers, and 178 maternity homes. In an effort to see patients who don't normally go to health centers, the Ministry of Health has also fully equipped 66 mobile health clinics. These are made from semi-trucks that have been confiscated in drug busts and converted into clinics. In 2020, these mobile clinics provided nearly 1.9 million consults. In the midst of the pandemic, MINSA rolled out the My Hospital in My Community program, which sees patients in neighborhood health fairs with orthopedists, cardiologists, gynecologists, urologists, and includes screening for prostate, breast, and cervical cancers. Patients are then referred to a specialist at a hospital for follow-up, where they're moved to the front of the line to lower their waiting times. Nicaragua has made a long-term financial investment in public health. It's one of the countries with the largest increase per capita in investment in health, increased from $32 in 2007 to $70 per person today. 60% of the annual budget goes to healthcare and education. In 14 years, the total number of healthcare workers employed in the public sector is up by 66%. Doctors are up by 123%. Free medical consultations are up by 329%. All this combined with the school lunch program, which guarantees a hot meal of beans and rice to 1.2 million primary school children daily, means that there has been a 45% reduction in chronic malnutrition for children under 5 and a 66% reduction in chronic malnutrition in children 6 to 12 years old. Increase in maternal wait homes by 212% has led to an 87% reduction in home births, a 70% reduction in maternal mortality rates, and a 61% reduction in infant mortality. Moving forward, Nicaragua plans to continue expansion, finishing 5 more new hospitals before the end of this year and building 12 more new by 2026. It's in this context of more than a decade of revolutionary changes to the health system that Nicaragua faced the coronavirus. When COVID-19 was declared as a pandemic, Nicaragua was already prepared by having a healthier, more resilient population with access to the best public health care in the region. Nicaragua has chosen to fight the pandemic on its own terms while keeping its schools, its borders, and its economy open, essential in a country where families survive on what they can earn each day. Nicaragua has learned to live with the virus, to continue life and work safely. Nicaragua's softer approach means the economy is in better shape than other countries in the region. Nicaragua was the only country in Central America to increase exports in 2020, and GDP growth is expected to be between 2.5 and 3.5% in 2021. Nicaragua's approach has also meant fewer COVID cases and deaths than any other country in the region. This chart shows figures from a Seattle-based Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, which says that because COVID deaths are underreported in all countries, numbers should be adjusted for excess deaths or those above the expected death rate. Even with excess deaths, you can see that Nicaragua's COVID deaths per capita are well below any other country in the region, let alone larger countries like the US and the UK, which you can see on the right-hand side. Nicaragua began vaccinating against COVID in March, but the rollout has been slow due to unequal vaccine distribution worldwide. So far, Nicaragua has vaccinated 525,000 people with the goal of vaccinating 1 million by October 9th. Although there was initially some vaccine hesitancy in the older population, as we experience a second wave now, demand has risen. This week, the eligible age was lowered to 30 years old, and people have been queuing up around the country to get jabbed. Everyone reports good spirits and order despite long lines. Moving on to advances in education. In 2003, the average Nicaraguan had 3.5 years of schooling. For those who did go to school, there were fees for everything. When parents couldn't pay the costs, children couldn't sit exams and couldn't pass the year. Only 30% of those starting first grade were expected to finish 6th grade. When the FSLN came into office in 2007, the government ended all school fees. Nicaraguans can get preschool through university education for free. Since then, Nicaragua has increased education spending by 381%, renovated or built new nearly 35,400 schools, added nearly 30% more teachers, and is feeding 1.2 million school children a hot meal each day. Before, the choice many parents had was to send your child to school or send them to the stoplight so they could beg to eat. Now, when children eat at school for free, the choice is simple. This is why you don't see many children begging at stoplights in the cities anymore. Additionally, the government provides students with new backpacks loaded with school supplies, over 5.7 million of them since 2007. My own children received these backpacks during their primary school education. So what are the results of this investment? Youth with no schooling at all has dropped from 24% to 4%. Rates for passing primary and secondary grades have increased from 79 to 91%, and remarkably, the percentage of the population with a university degree has risen from 9% to 19%. Moving on to housing and land issues. Prior to 2007, the vast majority of Nicaraguans lived in crowded, substandard housing. Since then, the government has passed a law to incentivize construction of low-income housing and provide subsidies to make housing accessible, including direct subsidy for down payment and maximum of 3.5% annual interest on 10-year mortgages. The government has also additional dignified housing programs, such as the Bismarck-Martinez program, where houses cost $1,500 paid over 6 years with payments of $20 per month. Prior to 2007, property titles in Nicaragua were a mess. Most poor people did not have a clear title to their land or their home. The government has been working to legalize homes in rural land and urban areas with an emphasis on women heads of household. In the past 14 years, these programs have resulted in construction and improvements on 122,122 low-income houses, delivery of 25,820 Bismarck-Martinez houses, and delivery of 427,434 land titles. Additionally, an area equal to 31% of Nicaragua's national territory has been deeded to indigenous communities in non-transferable legal land titles, benefiting 200,000 people in 314 communities. Since 2007, Nicaragua has created a national system of protected areas, which now represents 25.5% of the national territory, with an area of 3.3 million hectares made up of 72 protected areas. Additionally, programs have reforested 32,000 hectares. In advances in basic services, let's start with electricity. In 2007, there were unannounced rolling blackouts of up to 12 hours per day, which wrought havoc on the productivity in every area. The sewing cooperative we worked with at the time had to invest thousands of dollars in a generator just to stay competitive. At that time, 80% of Nicaragua's energy was generated from oil, and just over half the country was connected to the grid. 14 years ago in my village, my neighbors brought electricity from a nearby well to their homes using barbed wire. In most houses, there was barely enough electricity to turn on a light bulb. The electrical grid has now been extended to all houses in our village, and my neighbors have televisions, refrigerators, and shops selling food, ice, and cooled drinks. Additionally, 80% of the population has low consumption of electricity and receives a subsidy to cover 45% of their electric bill. Electrical coverage has gone from 54% to 99%. In 2007, Nicaragua's electricity was sourced at only 26% renewable. Today, with a huge investment in wind, biomass, geothermal, solar, and hydroelectric, more than 80% of Nicaragua's electricity is produced using renewable resources. Since 2007, 38 million barrels of oil have been saved thanks to this switch. Now for potable water, the most fundamental of basic services. In 2007, it reached little of the population. In my own village, we had to haul water by horse cart and ration what we used for cooking, drinking, bathing, and washing. It was impossible to have a garden because you couldn't water it, and only limited livestock was possible. Since then, community potable water and sanitation committees have been created. These are autonomous committees that administer wells and water distribution with technical support from rural municipalities. Our village water system is run by such a committee, and we now have running water to 576 homes, and our family's water bill is less than half of what it used to be. Today, access to potable water in Nicaragua has risen from 65% of urban homes in 2007 to 92%. Access in rural areas has gone from 28% to 55%, and 3,127 community water committees have been established. Access to sewage systems not only helps prevent diseases like diarrhea and cholera, but when there is no sewage system, used wash water runs in the streets, creating breeding grounds for mosquitoes that carry dengue, malaria, Zika, and chikungunya. Access to improved sewage systems has gone from 33% to 54% in urban areas and from 36% to 51% in rural areas. In infrastructure, Nicaragua now boasts the best roads in the region, having doubled the mileage of paved roads, paving nearly 2,000 kilometers of roads, repairing another 2,000 kilometers, building 120 kilometers of bridges and drainage systems as well. Vitally, these new roads connect the Caribbean coast to the Pacific side of Nicaragua in just an 8-hour drive. They connect rural farmers with markets and have increased national and international tourism. Improved roads sound superficial to some people, but in Ciudad Sandino, where we had only one paved road, we've seen how even the shortest improved road has changed lives. In addition to buses, moto taxis are a quick, economical way to get around now. Increased traffic leads to increased customers for micro businesses. Families have less mud and dust inside their houses and can even push a baby buggy easily down the street for the first time. Nicaragua has a lot of arable land and agriculture is its backbone, especially small farmers. But during the neoliberal years, cooperatives and small farmers were ignored and lacked access to credits. For those who could access commercial credit, thousands of small farmers lost their land to banks with total crop loss after Hurricane Mitch in 1998. Since 2007, $548 million has been given in credits to small farmers, attending around 25,700 farmers per year, many of whom are women. Farmers are given training in new varieties and farming techniques, as well as seeds, starts, and tools. This is my daughter helping hand out production packages in our community last week. Support has also been given to cooperatives, giving important stability to small farmers. Since 2007, nearly 318,000 members have been inducted into 5,900 new cooperatives. The results of this work are that Nicaragua now produces 90% of the food in the country, a very high level of food security, which is vital. The Nicaraguan government also put particular emphasis on creative economy, focusing on micro and small business, which accounts for 70% of employment. Since 2007, 23,345 micro and small businesses have been formalized, meaning those workers are now in the Social Security system, they're paid benefits, and will be eligible for a pension. The government has streamlined the process to make it easy and provides ongoing training in areas for the creative economy with a focus on women. 3.5 million women have taken free courses, internships, workshops, and seminars to strengthen their skills. In the past 14 years, the government has sponsored 32,552 fairs and where micro and small businesses have opportunities to sell products without having to pay for space, and 144 municipal markets have been built. Public school curriculum now includes a class on entrepreneurship and learning how to run a small business. A microcredit program for women has been established called Zero Usury. This program is important because in 2007, private microcredit institutions were largely unregulated and charged on average 41% annual interest. Zero Usury has given credits to over 800,000 women, loaning $18 million a year on an average of 5% annual interest. Successful groups are then encouraged to form cooperatives in order to give work to more women. Since 2007, nearly 300 women's cooperatives have been formed. Through these and other programs which target women, the situation for women has improved drastically in Nicaragua. There are new laws in place to protect women from violence, and 60 women's police stations have reopened. These are by and for women to make it easier for women to file complaints for aggression, threats, or attempts to undermine their dignity in their life. This year, a class was added to secondary school curriculum called The Dignity and Rights of Women. Currently, 55.7% of women in Nicaragua participate in the job market or carry out some form of paid work, placing it as the country in Latin America and the Caribbean with the highest participation of women in the workforce. In all aspects of gender equality, Nicaragua is exemplary. According to the Global Gender Gap Report, in overall gender equality, Nicaragua has gone from 62 out of 153 countries in 2006 to number 5 worldwide, reducing the gender gap by over 80% in just 14 years. In women's health and survival, Nicaragua is number 1 in the world. In women's educational attainment, Nicaragua is number 1 in the world. In women cabinet ministers, Nicaragua is number 1 in the world. Nearly 59% of all cabinet members are women. Not only are women better off now, but so are families. Recreational opportunities for families were once few and far between, but now every municipality has safe, cheap options. 772 parks have been built, and 207 of them have free Wi-Fi access. 1,340 sports facilities have been built, 59 museums and 59 cultural centers have been built. For youth, dance, culture, and art schools with free classes have been installed in all 153 municipalities in the country. Additionally, Nicaragua's largely unarmed police force works with young people to promote a culture of peace, which includes home visits to at-risk youth, community counseling sessions, organizing and running sports programs, teaching vocational classes, technical training, GED programs, and even financing startup businesses together with at-risk youth. In terms of security, Nicaragua has the lowest homicide rate in Central America, and efforts to neutralize organized crime, gangs, and drug cartels have been very successful. In fact, as you can see, in the last 14 years, Nicaragua has become an example that the whole world urgently needs to follow, a model of equitable, green, pro-poor development. Thank you.